Good morning, everyone. First, let me tell you that this project did not turn out, but I want you to see what I did do, and then I'll explain more about what's going on. I have two of these great big huge jars, and I had some avocado pits and skins that I had in the freezer. Now, I think I had used them once, but the, they had a lot. I mean, there was a lot of them, and I had just boiled a little pan full of it, so um, I was I was going to use them again, and they were a little bit still frozen together, so I didn't get them in the jar all at one time. I think they would have. Hi, sorry for the coughing. I do apologize. Um, I also had some yellow onion skins. I've been saving that bag for a while. They they I make sure they're dry before I put them in a plastic bag. That's for sure. Um, I had multiple papers. That is just some copy paper. Some of it is cream colored, some of it's white. I had some forms type papers, different. I just grabbed all kinds of different papers because I wanted to try different things. Excuse me, in this project that I was trying to do. I'm just here showing all the papers. Now, you'll see up in the sort of right hand corner, there's bundles of rolled up papers. That's what each one of the bundles kind of looked like. And I had just rolled those ahead of time because I knew that I could shove 3 bundles into each jar. So this stack of papers is exactly what's in each one of those bundles that are laid up there. And I'm about done here, and I'm just going to roll them up. And I didn't try to roll it real tight. There was plenty of room down the center of it that I sort of felt like it needed to have like a tube or a hole in the middle of it so that the dye could penetrate from the inside out. Uh, there again, that didn't work. Okay, once it was rolled up, I had tore up this fabric. It, it was just some woven white fabric that was in the stash I have. And I just kind of chomped it up. I did not try to do anything special with it. I just thought that I would wrap it around the paper and kind of use it to hold the paper together. And I would also then have a little bit of fabric dyed in the same colors as the paper. So once I get the fabric wrapped around there, I take some baker's twine or string, whatever you want to call it, and I wrap that around the bundle, and then I have my bundle all tied up. When I dye in a boiling vat, I usually use these like wire racks and push things together. I don't tie them into rolls like this. So this is something new I was trying. And I figured again, I'd have then a piece of baker's twine that was also in that color family um, of the papers. It was a plan to have multiple different kinds of papers in there. So, I was going to throw each one in there. Now, I also had 2 stacks of papers set aside that I want to put leaves into. So here's a whole bunch of leaves. I just went around the yard. I have the same kind of papers in this stack, and I just piled different leaves into them. The first ones you saw were from a Confederate rose, and then the next one was from a fern. I don't know what that third one was. That right there. It's just stuff in the yard. I didn't leave the yard to get leaves, and I am very careful when I cut my ferns because I don't have good stand of ferns yet, so I don't like the idea of overcutting my ferns. If I use a lot of ferns, there I have to go out in the country. There's a spot I know where they grow just wild along the road, and I sometimes go out there and cut some. But for the most part, I only cut a few off of my plants, just simply because my plants have not established themselves that well yet. Some of that was English ivy too. Once I get this whole stack together, I'm going to roll it up and wrap it and do exactly what I did with the other ones. I rolled it up, I wrapped it with the fabric, wrapped it with the thread. Of course, that roll with the leaves in there is thicker than the rolls with no leaves in them, but for some unknown reason, my scissors did not want to cut that thread or string. And as far as bundling goes, that worked very well. Um, if this hadn't have failed so badly, I probably would have let them sit after they had come out and because unrolling it, I tore them up. You'll see in that in a little bit. I have always found that if you let the paper dry a little bit before you start trying to pull it apart, you're much better off. So I'm going to go ahead and get this particular jar ready to go. And that means that I'm going to put the rest of the um, avocados in there. And I just put the plant matter in the bottom of the jar. I don't think it would have made a bit of difference in this project if I had put it in amongst everything else. It just really didn't work. I did have to shove that through there a little bit though. Come on, use your muscles. Okay, so I got 3 rolls in there, 2 with no leaves and 1 with leaves. Now, I didn't put any water in there yet. I'm just moving it off to the side so I can get the other one ready. The second jar, I put about half my bag of onion skins in it and then put the same kind of 3 rolls of papers in there. Now, if you can see off to the right, that's my tea jar, and I make sun tea every day. That tea jar will be hot enough at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that you cannot put your hands on it, that you have to wait until later in the day to bring it in. It can get very, very hot. So I filled those 2 jars with my dye materials up with water and I left them sit there. Now, can you see the trails? That jar is not as easy to see. The left-hand jar with the onion skin in has those trails down it. Here's where here's where things failed. I knew that it was going to take a while for the dye to penetrate the papers rolls, so I left them a couple of days. I never even thought about the fact that that plant material would ferment. When I opened those jars and started pulling those papers out, they smelled. Now, the edges of that has some really pretty color in it. Um, I'm going to move things over to where you can see it laid out in a minute and unroll this. That's the avocado dye. And if you can see, the outside edges have a little bit of pink, but the smell is awful. And I spent 2 days trying to get the smell off my hands, and I didn't even immerse my hands into that water. Um, the I ended up, honestly, I threw everything away. The smell was so bad. If the dye had penetrated, I might have tried to wash the smell out, but when you see what's happened inside, you'll know it wasn't worth trying to fuss with it. And I don't know that I'd have gotten the smell out. Maybe some vinegar would have, but the fermentation, I thought that the bottles had just gotten too warm and that's why that had trailed out. Instead, it was probably fermentation. And if you look, when you unroll that, there's hardly any dye on that paper. It was almost white, and it just there was just no reason to fuss with it. That was my thing. There's just no reason to fuss with something that smelt that bad. This is the one that had the leaves in it. This is again the avocado dyed. And sorry about my big fat arm, but outside, and I was so glad I didn't bring this in the house. But if you look again, now again, I would have, if this had been working, I would have left those bundles to dry some, but they just didn't have any color inside. And they had been sitting there for 3 days. It wasn't something that hadn't set. The color of the onion skin, and that's what this one is gorgeous. And the very outside fabric dyed pretty well. But once I got inside of it, and even the onion skin, it didn't smell like onion. It smelled like something fermented. It just really did not have enough color inside of it to make it bother worth. And I threw the whole mess away, guys. I would call this an epic fail because the inside didn't dye enough and the smell was awful. And I see how it's white inside. It just wasn't enough color to be fussing with. Um, I will boil some more and do some more dyeing with some other things, but I'm not going to fuss with this again. I